It's July 7, Ukraine Media Center, Ukraine Forum starts its operation today, and my name is Svetlana Shaparenko. Now we will be talking about the grain deal and the harvest. Joining us online is Dmytro Solomchuk, member of the parliament and the member of the parliamentary committee on agrarian policy and land policy. Good afternoon, Mr. Dmytro. Good afternoon. Mr. Dmytro, in 10 days, the term of the grain deal effective as of now expires. Russia tries to avoid it. They blackmail EU. So what are the chances of Russia to block that deal, or are they just bluffing? Well, Russia didn't want that deal to operate from the very beginning. They didn't want us to export any of our products because they were using their grain always as a manipulative factor. Today, the negotiations include many other countries, many new members, to make sure that the corridor continues its operation. I hope that within a day or two before the expiration date, the grain will be continued. I think they will approve the positive decision, given the number of countries getting engaged in this process. In your opinion, to what extent West is inclined to make some concessions to Russia, and what are the terms and conditions on the Ukrainian side? I don't think that the West will afford any concessions because Russia tries to continue manipulating. However, I think that their opinion, their sentiment is of no interest in the political world anymore. And to change the situation, there was a decision taken to allocate 20 billion of insurance funds, and even if Russia would not provide for operation of the corridor, will not ensure the security, there are owners of the companies, I mean the ship companies, that are willing to enter the Ukrainian ports, and Ukraine is about to guarantee the security using this 20 billion fund. What is the situation with the vessels operating within the grain deal? What is the situation with the delays? Well, the situation is quite complicated. Almost no grain is loaded, no inspection teams are working, and if there are some inspections and exports going on, they are happening in the Danube riverbed, and those ships and vessels coming and going through the Black Sea ports, they are not numerous at all. So can you please tell us about this year's harvest? The harvesting campaign has started, so is it in line with the plans, with the schedule? What is the situation around the harvest? Well, according to my forecast, we are about to gather 7 billion tons of bean crops, maybe a little bit less. The active phase of harvesting is going on in Kherson, Mykolaiv, Odessa, partly in Zaporizhia region. The harvest of winter crops was already harvested there. The most difficult is the situation in Mykolaiv and Kherson region, and in Zaporizhia region, in part of Dnipropetrovsk and Sumy and Chernihiv regions, where the territories are still being shelled or the fields are still densely mined, or where there is no material because it was either pillaged or destroyed. Many people, the workers, I mean, don't want to go to those areas due to the shellings, and there is the foundation sending vehicles that way. 11 combiners were sent there recently in order to gather the harvest in a timely manner. So in view of this situation, are we going according to the schedule, or are we a little bit behind? Well, the harvesting campaign has started according to the schedule, and in the southern areas they started harvesting maybe a week later due to the weather conditions. In the west of Ukraine, maybe in some rare spots they have not yet started harvesting, but anyway, the amounts to be harvested there are quite small. But 15, 17 of July is the normal time when the harvesting campaign is being started. So what are the losses of Ukrainian agriculture in view of the man-made catastrophe on Kakhovka Dam? Well, the losses are tremendous. At least 10,000 hectares which were washed away, Ukrainian black soils that we don't know if we would be able to renew them after the occupation, after the demining, and after removal of the riverbed sediments. It resulted in losses of both grain crops and vegetables. So for what I understand, there are no specific figures, specific calculations. Well, the watermelons and tomatoes were growing in those areas, in part of those areas, and part of those areas were serving for growing of grain crops. So it altogether it resulted in losses of tens of thousands of tons of harvest. So what is the situation with the export of the agrarian products? I mean, the overall, well, we cannot call it generally stable. Our neighbors from Romania are most loyal to our export operations because we export a lot of our agricultural products along the Danube, more than 3 million tons per month. Also, we are in negotiations with Moldova to get ourselves connected to the ports of the Danube, which is a cheap and a practical way. In the western directions, Poland and Slovakia, we export our products through railway to them, but the amounts being exported through those countries decreased recently. We exported 200,000 tons last month. It's like 200 trucks per day. Those trucks and railway carriages, they undergo very thorough inspections. The process is being extended, but in view of the latest negotiations between President Zelensky and President Duda, we hope our agrarians will be able, as they start some intense harvesting and as they start accumulating a lot of products in their storages, we hope that we would be able to use our European neighbors as transit countries in a normal way. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, do we have questions on the floor? Yes, Anastasia Kravchenko, Ukrainian Forum. Good afternoon. I want to ask you about the grain deal. Given the worst case scenario, and should Russia withdraw from the deal, does Ukraine have a plan to increase exports in alternative pathways? Can we actually export all of our agricultural products without sea? Thank you. Well, it will be quite complicated without the sea exports because it's first of all the cheapest way, given the price of the freight having fell within the last couple of months. So it's the cheapest way of delivery, and the agrarians have the biggest proceeds from sea export. But the alternative ways are the Danube, 3 million tons of reloading, plus we are in negotiations with Romania so that we don't enter the port of Constanța but rather reload the grain right out in the sea, and it would add another at least million of tons. And we also are in negotiations with the parliaments and the presidents of the western countries, so should the European countries unblock the deliveries, it will enable us to export about 1.5 million tons so 5 million tons in total, which are sufficient for Ukrainian agrarians. Plus, there was a 20 billion worth insurance fund created, so the vessels that are about to enter the ports, in case Russia does not continue the deal, those companies will insure their vessels Ukrainian against the guarantees of Ukrainian government, the guarantees against losses and damage. So there are companies which are ready to operate under conditions like that already. Thank you. Can you please tell us what is the situation with the demining of agricultural lands now? What are the forecasts, the plans for the autumn sowing campaign? Maybe there are some areas which are already planned to be demined by then. The demining, given the huge areas, is a complex process. The armed forces, in coordination with the Ukraine Emergency Service and humanitarian funds, work over there on demining in the north of Ukraine and in the east. In coordination with the humanitarian funds, they used the unmanned demining vehicles which were provided by the charity funds. I know that there are about 40 units of material being procured and to be delivered shortly for demining. Also, demining is going on in manual mode, like people walk along the area, engage for the mines. They use the mine detectors, the manual mine detectors, and this is how the demining process is going on. However, in reality, to demine all the agricultural lands within the 2 seasons, because we have a lot of mined areas still remaining in Borodyanka and Gostomel. I'm not even talking about Kherson and Kharkiv regions. We need at least 300-400 unmanned demining vehicles to expedite this process, because manually with the manual mine detectors it's very complicated, very hazardous and very long. Thank you very much, Mr. Dmytro. But I also want to add that we provided the sewing machines to Izum. In Kharkiv region also we provided them to Kherson and to Mykolaiv regions when people were not able to sow the winter crops back in August last year. So this year they have already added 200-300 hectares every of the farmers with the spring crops, because those areas were already demined, so the harvesting areas already are increasing. But we would like to have it happen as soon as possible. We all wait for support from our partners. Everybody procures the vehicles and keeps handing them over to us. So if it goes this way, we will be able to clear our land within 2 or 3 seasons. Thank you very much, Mr. Dmytro. Thank you for informing us about the grain deal and the situation in the grain market. Joining us was Dmytro Solomchuk, member of the parliament and the member of the Parliamentary Committee on Agrarian Policy and Land Policy. And at 1500 here in this studio, we will have the presentation of the book by Luke Hardin, Invasion, Russia's Bloody War and Ukraine's Fight for Survival. Stay tuned.